The day Ethan Parker turned 18 was the same day he lost his family. At least, that's how it felt. The argument started in the kitchen. It ended with his father pointing toward the front door. "If you think you know everything, then leave." Ethan still remembered the silence that followed. His mother looked away. His older brothers said nothing. Only his 16-year-old sister, Lily, stood beside him. "Then I'm leaving too," she said. Everyone stared. Their father laughed bitterly. Fine. Neither sibling expected him to mean it. He did. Within an hour, Ethan and Lily had packed their belongings into Ethan's aging pickup truck. By sunset they were gone. No inheritance. No financial help. No support. Nothing. For years they survived however they could. Ethan worked construction, warehouse jobs, landscaping, anything that paid. Lily finished school while working evenings at a grocery store. Life wasn't easy, but they stayed together, and somehow they made it work. The only family member who remained in contact was their grandfather, Walter Parker. Unlike the rest of the family, Walter never took sides. He called regularly, sent letters, visited when he could. More importantly, he believed in them. Whenever life became difficult, Walter always said the same thing. Sometimes being forced out is the only way to discover where you belong. At the time, Ethan thought it sounded like something printed on a greeting card. Years later, he would understand exactly what Walter meant. The call came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Walter had passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 84. The news hit harder than Ethan expected. For nearly 10 years, Walter had been their connection to family. Now that connection was gone. 3 weeks later, Ethan and Lily attended the will reading. Neither expected much. Their grandfather had never been wealthy, at least not by the standards of the Parker family. Most of the estate consisted of savings accounts, investments, and property holdings. As the attorney reviewed the documents, Ethan noticed something interesting. Their father looked extremely confident. So did Ethan's brothers. The family clearly expected the inheritance to remain within their circle. Then the attorney reached the final section. "To my grandchildren Ethan Parker and Lily Parker, jointly, I leave the mountain cabin located on Cedar Ridge." The room became quiet. The attorney continued. "The cabin and all contents therein are to remain jointly owned." Their father's expression changed immediately. Ethan noticed. So did Lily. "What cabin?" she asked. The attorney looked surprised. "You've never heard of it." Both shook their heads. The attorney opened a file. "Your grandfather purchased the property approximately 40 years ago." A photograph appeared. The image showed an isolated log cabin deep within a forested mountain valley. It looked old, very old, and completely abandoned. The attorney handed them a key. One key, heavy brass, ancient. "The property has remained sealed for over 20 years according to county records." Ethan frowned. "Sealed? Your grandfather specifically instructed that nobody was to enter the cabin until after his death." The room fell silent. Then one of Ethan's brothers laughed. "A locked cabin." Another smirked. "Guess Grandpa left you a fixer-upper." Several relatives chuckled. Their father remained silent, but his expression suggested disappointment. Whatever he expected to inherit, the cabin apparently wasn't it. The meeting ended shortly afterward. Outside, Lily examined the old key. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Ethan smiled. "We're opening it." 3 days later they headed into the mountains. The journey took nearly 4 hours. Paved roads became gravel. Gravel became dirt. Eventually, even the dirt road disappeared. The forest grew thicker, the mountain steeper. By late afternoon they reached Cedar Ridge, and finally saw the cabin. Neither spoke. The building looked exactly like something from another century. Massive hand-cut logs formed the walls. Iron hardware reinforced every door and window. A tall wooden fence surrounded the entire structure. The place resembled a fortress more than a cabin. What was Grandpa doing up here? Lily whispered. Ethan didn't know. The property felt strange. Not dangerous, just unusual, deliberate. Everything appeared designed for security. The main gate remained locked. Rust covered parts of the hinges. Leaves covered the ground. No vehicle tracks existed anywhere nearby. Nobody had visited in years. Maybe decades. Ethan unlocked the gate. The metal latch clicked loudly. Both froze. The sound echoed through the trees. For reasons he couldn't explain, the moment felt important. Almost ceremonial. Slowly they entered. The cabin stood at the center of a clearing. Closer inspection revealed remarkable craftsmanship. Despite its age, the structure remained solid. The roof was intact. The foundation showed no signs of failure. Whoever built it knew exactly what they were doing. Finally, they reached the front door. The ancient brass key fit perfectly. Ethan looked at Lily. Read it? She nodded. He turned the key. A loud click echoed through the cabin. Then he pushed. The heavy door swung inward. Dust floated through beams of sunlight. The interior smelled old wood and cold stone. Yet surprisingly, it didn't smell abandoned. The cabin looked preserved. Intentionally preserved. Furniture remained in place. Books lined shelves. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Everything appeared frozen in time. Lily walked slowly through the living room. It's like he expected us. Ethan felt the same way. Then he noticed something. A wooden table stood in the center of the room. Unlike everything else, it contained only one object. A sealed envelope. 2 names were written across the front. Ethan and Lily. Neither spoke. Ethan picked it up. Inside was a handwritten letter. The moment he saw the handwriting, his chest tightened. Walter, if you're reading this, you finally opened the cabin. Good. What I'm about to tell you must remain between the 2 of you until you understand the whole story. Ethan exchanged a glance with Lily. The letter continued. Everything important is hidden beneath the cabin. Both looked up simultaneously. Beneath the cabin? You'll find the entrance behind the fireplace. Bring flashlights. Trust each other. Follow the markers. And remember what I've always told you. Family isn't always the people you're born to. It's the people who stay. The letter ended there. Nothing else. No explanation. No details. Just instructions. Lily stared at the page. Hidden beneath the cabin? Ethan turned toward the massive stone fireplace. At first glance it looked completely ordinary. Then he noticed something unusual. One stone near the base appeared smoother than the others, as though it had been handled repeatedly. Slowly he knelt. Pressed it. A deep mechanical sound echoed somewhere below. The floor vibrated. Both jumped backward. Then a section of stone beside the fireplace began sliding away, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cold air drifted upward. Neither sibling moved. For several seconds they simply stared. The passage shouldn't have existed. Not in a cabin like this. Not in the middle of nowhere. Then Ethan aimed his flashlight downward. The beam illuminated stone walls, metal rails, and something else. A second envelope sitting on the first step, waiting for them, as though their grandfather knew this exact moment would happen. Ethan slowly descended the first step. The second envelope rested exactly where his grandfather had described, waiting, almost as though Walter had planned every detail years in advance. Lily followed closely behind. The underground passage stretched deeper beneath the cabin than either expected. Stone walls lined both sides. Old lantern brackets hung at regular intervals. Someone had spent enormous effort constructing the hidden space. At the bottom of the stairs, Ethan opened the envelope. Inside was another handwritten note. Good. You found the passage. Now it's time to understand why the cabin exists. Everything you're about to see was built to protect something far more valuable than money. The note directed them forward. They followed the tunnel for nearly 100 yards before reaching a large underground chamber. The room looked like a cross between an archive and a workshop. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of boxes filled the space. Maps covered the walls. Metal filing cabinets stood in neat rows. The entire room had been meticulously organized. Lily stared in amazement. What is all this? Ethan didn't know. But another letter sat waiting on a central table. He unfolded it carefully. For decades, our family believed wealth came from land, investments, and property. They were wrong. The most valuable thing a person can leave behind is knowledge. The letter explained everything. 40 years earlier, Walter had become obsessed with preserving local history. Entire communities throughout the mountains had been disappearing. Old family farms were abandoned. Historic records were destroyed. Photographs vanished. Stories were forgotten. Walter feared that generations of local history would simply disappear. So he spent decades collecting it. Everything. Property records, personal journals, photographs, maps, oral histories, family archives, documents that otherwise would have been lost forever. The hidden chamber had become his life's work. A private historical archive. Lily slowly turned in a circle. There must be thousands of documents here. There are, Ethan said quietly. And then he noticed something else. Modern equipment. Climate control systems. Backup power supplies. Professional storage containers. Walter hadn't simply collected history. He had protected it, very carefully, for years. The next several days passed in a blur. The siblings remained at the cabin, reading, sorting, cataloging. The deeper they explored, the more astonishing the archive became. Researchers would have considered it priceless. Entire sections documented the earliest settlement of the region. Others contained records thought lost decades earlier. Some materials had never been publicly seen at all. Then, on the fourth day, they discovered something even bigger. A locked cabinet. Inside were contracts, survey reports, and correspondence from major universities. Walter had secretly consulted historians for years. Several institutions had expressed interest in acquiring the archive. The estimated value shocked them. Not millions, but enough to secure their future comfortably. Yet that wasn't what caught Ethan's attention. One letter stood out. It had been written only 2 years before Walter died. Mr. Parker, your collection may be one of the most complete privately assembled regional archives in the country. Ethan read the sentence twice, then 3 times. Their grandfather had created something extraordinary, something far beyond what anyone in the family understood. That evening they sat beside the fireplace upstairs. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Lily broke the silence. So that's the secret? Ethan stared into the fire. No. What do you mean? He handed her another folder. One they had discovered earlier that day. Lily opened it, then froze. The documents described a non-profit foundation, a detailed business plan, architectural drawings, partnership proposals, grant applications. Everything had already been prepared. Walter hadn't intended for them to sell the archive. He intended for them to build something with it. A regional history center, museum exhibits, educational programs, research partnerships, community preservation projects. The cabin wasn't meant to be an endpoint. It was supposed to be a beginning. Over the following months, Ethan and Lily worked harder than ever. They met historians, universities, community leaders, local officials. At first, many people were skeptical. Then they saw the archive. Everything changed. Support grew rapidly. Donations followed. Partnerships formed. Within 2 years, the Parker Heritage Center officially opened. The old cabin became the centerpiece. Visitors traveled from across the state. Researchers arrived from universities. Schools organized field trips. The archive became one of the region's most respected historical collections. And for the first time in their lives, Ethan and Lily weren't merely surviving. They were building something meaningful. Then came the day their father visited. Neither sibling expected it. A black pickup pulled into the parking area one autumn afternoon. Their father stepped out slowly. Older now, more tired than Ethan remembered. The 3 stood in awkward silence. Finally, their father looked toward the restored cabin. It's impressive. Ethan nodded. Grandpa left us something special. Their father stared at the building, then at the visitors walking the grounds. Finally, he sighed. I spent years thinking he made a mistake. Neither sibling responded, because they already knew exactly what he meant. Everyone had assumed the inheritance was worthless. Just a locked cabin deep in the mountains. Nothing more. Their father continued. I didn't understand what he saw in you too. The admission seemed difficult for him. Painfully difficult, but genuine. Lily smiled softly. Neither did we. For the first time in many years, the conversation felt honest. Not perfect, not magical, but honest. And sometimes that was enough. Years later, a bronze plaque stood beside the cabin entrance. Visitors stopped to read it every day. It displayed one of Walter Parker's favorite sayings. Family isn't always the people you're born to. It's the people who stay. Ethan often paused there before opening the center each morning. The words reminded him of everything that had happened. Being thrown out. Starting over. Years of struggle. The sealed cabin. The hidden chamber. The future their grandfather had quietly prepared. People still asked whether Walter had left them a fortune. Ethan always smiled at the question, because the answer depended on how someone defined wealth. The family members who inherited money spent years protecting what they received. Ethan and Lily inherited an opportunity, a purpose, a legacy, and the chance to build something larger than themselves. Standing beside the old mountain cabin as visitors explored the grounds, Ethan looked toward the distant forested ridges. His grandfather had understood something long before anyone else. The most valuable inheritance isn't always hidden in a bank account. Sometimes it's hidden behind a locked door, beneath a forgotten cabin, waiting for the right people to discover what truly matters.